Okay, we're up to Peches Amid Aleph, a new sugya. I mean, it's a new beginning because we brought this in to possibly answer the question that we had the other day. But so we're starting from Gufa on Peches Amid Aleph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down Gufa. So previously we brought this in to go ahead and we want to know how is it possible to explain the machloikis between why if the father gave the kid the tzleichus, the flask, right? Why is the chenvani chayav to pay? So he wanted to time that the chenvani picked it up to check it out, and therefore this is we're picking a gufa, and then we rejected that because then we're gonna make the machloikis between the chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. We're gonna make Shmuel would be a machloikis tanoim. So Gufa, Amar Shmuel, Hanoitel Kli Mina Umin, Levakroi. Person's picking up a Kli, he's purchasing a Kli from a artisan, and he's picking it up to check it out. Venenas biyadai, and in his hand, an einus happens. Chayev, he would be chayev. In other words, it's considered in his jurisdiction. However, why? V'hani mili the kaitse demeha, that its amount has been set upon. Where's the king over here that it belongs to you that you're going to be chayev? Where, again, you're picking up something to check it out. Ostensibly, you're picking it up to check it out because you want to purchase it. So the first thing you have to go ahead and say is the price was set. In other words, there's no haggling about the price. You agreed on the price. The Meicher and the Lekeach agreed on the price. If there was no agreement on the price, he's not going to be chayev. Now, when he picks it up, says the Nemuka Yosef, that's a hakbah. That's a hakbah. And adds the Rashbam, it's speaking about something that is a hot item, that a lot of people want to buy this item. So therefore, if that's the case, you picked up a hot item to buy and the price is set, that would be enough to make it your jurisdiction. And that's why he would be chayev. Hahu Gavra, a case that substantiates this psak. It was an individual. The oil lebei tafcha, he went to the butcher, and agba atma de Basra. He picked up a thigh of an animal. He wanted to check it out. And again, it has to be that the price was set. And bahadi took agba as he picked it up, asa parsha, came along a cavalryman, and mirma mina, and he took it from him. So now the butcher wanted his money. This guy's claiming that I don't owe you anything. As the commander of Yemar and chayve l'shlume demecha. He was chayv, the person who picked it up, he was chayv to pay for the thigh. Bahani mili hu the kaitzi demecha. That's provided that what? That the price was set. So again, price was set. It must have been a hot item that people wanted very much based upon the Rashbam. And now it was taken away. It was considered his. And therefore, he's mechayiv himat to pay. Similar to what? To the case of the checking out the umin's object, where you mechayiv him to pay. Ahu Gavra, the Isaac Kore Lepumnara. He brought gourds. He brought some type of melons to Lepumagra. And again, it's a hot item. People were picking it up, taking them away. Asakuli Alma Shaka Kara. Each one they were taking it away to chop it, to buy it. So Amalahu, he was getting a bit out of control. He couldn't. The Rashbam says that what it was just. Let's look at the lashon of Rashbam. Says the Rashbam, Shakal Kara Liknois Amalahem Harin Mukdoshim L'Shemayim. He didn't know who to ask the money from. Therefore, he wanted to answer it to them by being magdish. He would answer it, and I guess he'd be paid already afterwards. But in other words, there was a horde of people coming. He didn't know where to begin, and his reaction was to go ahead and be magdish this, and the action was to be magdish this. A little interesting. This is in the time of Amoraim, fellas. This is not the Beis Hamikdash is not standing around at this time. So anyway, how do I know? They came in front of Rav Kahana. So Asal Kamei the Rav Kahana. They came from Rav Kahana, who was an Amoira. So clearly the Beis Hamikdash wasn't around. Amalu Rav Kahana told the people who asked him, "Ain Adam Magdash Davashena Shaloi." The people picked up these gourds and they were going to buy them. So the person who brought them no longer is in his rishus, and therefore, since each magdish, a person's magdish what he has, but he can't magdish what he doesn't have. So this already is in line with the same psak. It's a hot item. They're picking it up to buy it. There's a kinyan, there's a hagbah. He's a moicher. It's out of his jurisdiction already, and therefore it's not what. It's not a good kaidesh, and therefore it belongs to them. Who provided with that a joinder that it has to be that the price was, there was a set price there, gourds for $1 or $2. If what? If you didn't go ahead and set the price, then b'shus mayim v'kaima v'shapa agdish. Then it'll be in the rishus of the person, and he will be magdish. And again, another halacha l'maisa case substantiating the psak of Shmuel that if the price is set and you pick it up, Muka Yosef, it's a kinyan, and it's a hot item. Like the Rashbam, the kinyan's done, it's not his anymore. We buttressed it with the maisa with the thigh, and we buttressed it with the maisa of the gourds. Tan Rabbanan. We have Talmidei Chachamim, these are Chaverim, Halakech Yerek Minashuk. They're buying from an Amaretz. Now there's a halacha of the Mai that they found, they checked out in Eretz Yisrael, that the Amaratzim, they were separating Truma Gedoyla, but they weren't separating Maisa Rishon. And therefore, they said that if anyone who purchased from an Aretz, al Suffolk has to go ahead and be mafish mafish Maisa. So Alkerech Yerek Minashuk, Ubira, and you're checking it out. You're picking up a Yerek, you're checking it out, you're putting them down, right? But your kavanah wasn't to be you wanted to check it out. Your kavanah wasn't to be koined. I feel kula, even the whole day he's checking like kani, not koined the Yerek, and therefore and you would not be mechuyev to give maisa. Guys, we have a rule that once it comes to a chaver is not going to let something out of his jurisdiction without going ahead and taking off maisa. Again, a chaver, a person who has distinction of being a chaver, he's not going to go ahead and let something out of his rishus without. So therefore, since it's not koine, it's not his rishus. Since it's not a rishus, there's no requirement to take off maisa. However, Gomar believe by liknaisa, if the Talmid Chacham he decided he wants to be koina, he wants to be koina, even if he didn't pick it up yet, koina then it's chayav b'maisa, and then he be chayav to take off maisa like any din of the mai. Now lehachsiroi to go ahead and give it back to the guy yevsha shekvar and chayav b'maisa, because it came to his rishus, and as we said, once it's his the chaver is mechuyev to take off maisa. And to take off maisa, it's not possible. Because if you're going ahead, after you took off maisa, you wouldn't be able to go ahead and return it to the guy because he's not getting back as much as he gave you. Again, to give him back the whole thing, let's say it's you have 10 plants. You bought 10 plants. You'd only give him back 9. To give him back all 10, you can't do it because you're mechuyev in maisa. To give him back 10, give him back 9. He sold you 10, so you're stuck. What exactly do you do over here, Ella? So what do you do? Haketzad ma'asroi. You go ahead and take off the 10th one. You have 9, and then v'noisin loi demei ha'maisa. And then you go ahead and you give the amaretz the worth of the maisa. So you give the maisa. He says. The Rashbam says you give the maisa to the Levi, and you go ahead and you pay the guy the extra. So you took care of that. So you gave him back 9, and so you lost. You gave him back 9, you pay him for the 10th, and you gave the maisa to the Levi. The problem with giving the maisa to the Levi, fellas, is how do you know he's a Levi? This is a classic case of a moitzi mechaber or love lehevi raya. You have to bring a raya that you're a Levi, and therefore it's a problem with the Rashbam. So Tosfos addresses it. If you look at the second Tosfos on the page, la'asra yefshar mifnei b'maisa rishon uv'maisa ani einam avchisai. By maisa rishon and maisa ani, you're not going ahead and taking away from the amaretz. The b'damai ma'asrin v'hein shaloi. Take it off and they can keep it. It's not a problem. El mavchisai b'maisa sheni. The mechisa is the Maisa Sheni. It's not the Maisa Rishon. The Rashbam is learning it's the Maisa Rishon, guys. And you give it to the Levi. He says, no, you can keep that. Guys, Bisman Azeh, you can keep your Meiser Rishon. You don't have to give it to the Levi. Because again, you don't know he's a Levi. Good. And any person can eat Meiser Rishon. So Tosfos doesn't ask the kasha directly on what? On the Rashbam, but I'm telling you, that's what's bothering him. Because to say that you have 10 and you can't give him back 10, it's not true. You could give him back 10. You don't have to give that one to the Levi fellas. You can give it back to him. You know what the shayla is? The Meiser Sheni. The Meiser Sheni is the problem. Ela machfisa Meiser Sheni shechayev la achlo b'Yushalayim. He's chayev tidin Yerushalayim with shumas Meiser and the Neisel Lekoyen Kedamin and Perek Basra the Saita. So it's a Meiser Sheni problem, not a Meiser Rishon problem. Just a little side point. Okay. Says the Gemara. Fred the Gemara. Atu mishum de goma beliba liknois. Just the guy said, remember, if he's going ahead, picking it up and checking it out the whole day, he's not kaina. But if he decides it's goma beliba to go ahead and be kaina, what kind of kinyan is being goma beliba, guys? If you don't do a physical act, what kind of kinyan is goma beliba? So goma beliba liknois kana in ischayev v'maisa, right? Well, what are you talking about, right? Why can't he change his mind? Here we're dealing with a person's Yireh Shemayim. Kigoin Rav Safra, like Rav Safra, right? Rav Safra was once saying Kriya Shema, and somebody offered him something for a price, and he didn't answer. And the guy thought he wanted a higher price, and he went it up. And after he finished, he went ahead and gave him the original price because he was Yireh Shemayim, and he didn't. The fact that he was saying Kriya Shema, he didn't want to take advantage of that. The Kaima Nafshi V'Doiva Emes B'Vava. He's true to his heart. So since fellas, he speaks truth in his heart. If he's goimer beliboy, if he completes in his heart to go ahead and be kaina, therefore, guys, there's no such kinyan as gama belibo. But you have a guy who's a Yireh Shemayim who was gama beliboy, then he be kaina the maisa, kaina, and therefore he has to take off maisa because he's a chaver, and that would explain that case. The Mishnah says the Mishnah. Now this inyan. We deal with the halachas of what of Eben shleima v'tzedek yelcha, eifa shleima v'tzedek yelcha l'manyucha yimecha ala adam Hashem elkecha naisin l'cha. Right? You have to go ahead and weights and measurements. I want to tell you, as a person who worked in a retail store where you had to read a scale, and it's bisman azeh. These digital scales have done a lot to go ahead and if they're calibrated correctly, they've done a lot in terms of this halacha. That a person avnei tzedek v'hin tzedek, you have to go ahead and measure correctly. So the rest of this perek is going to deal with, doing the right thing when it comes to measuring. When it comes to measuring, be it, and this Mishnah is dealing with liquid measurements. Okay, liquid measurements. So it says the Mishnah, hasitain. Now, I'm going to touch a sita on a wholesaler, right? The Rashbam says it comes to the lashon of Greek, which means chita, wheat. But in fact, the discussion over here is going to be in shemen and yayin, liquids. So you have a sitain, he's a wholesaler. Mikaneach midoisav. He has a measuring cup. And that measuring cup is going to hold X amount. However, over time, the residue builds up. And again, these aren't exactly like we have where plastic, you could see it's clean, it has a gradation, and you know exactly what it is. Think about it. They had measuring cups. You knew that cup measured X amount. You knew that cup was a revius. You knew that cup measured X amount. Now, if that cup has a residue building up, then the amount of the cup is not the right amount. Right? So we're dealing in going ahead and ensuring that this cup that's holding a liquid measure will go ahead and be true rather than what? Rather than false, and therefore cheating the lekeach. So the sitain who's busy with measuring liquid measures, mikanech midaisav, he cleans out his midah, he cleans it out echel l'shleishim yom, once every 30 days. That's enough to go ahead and ensure that what? It's not going to be a problem of a residue building up. Ubalabayis, who doesn't go ahead and do so much business like a Sitain, it's enough once in 12 months. So the Tanakama for the wholesaler, 30 days. For the balabas, the guy who makes a little money on the side, he's got a little farm in Jersey, right? He makes his sales a little bit here and there. It's enough once every 30 days. Or actually, once every 12 months. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Chilef Hadvarim, switch it around. That the Sitain is once every 12 months, and the balabas is once every 30 days. He's once every 30 days. What's the reason? Because the Sitain, since he uses it a lot, it doesn't have time to congeal. But the balabas who uses it seldom, so even within 30 days, if he uses it once, it may congeal, and that would be a problem. So therefore, Reb Shimon Gamliel switches it around and says the Sitain, he has to clean it out. He does not have to clean it out as often as the balabas, because since he uses it all the time, it doesn't have time to congeal. Chenvani, Mikanech midaisav hamayim b'Shabbos. The Chenvani does it twice a week. He does it twice a week. Okay. Now, the Chenvani, why twice a week? We learned earlier, guys. Shemen and Yayin, you have to turn the kli, and when do you turn it back? Only after 3 drops. You remember, fellas? When is it over? Only after 3 drops. But the Chenvani, we said, does not. He doesn't have time for this. Memela says the Mishnah, the Chenvani has to go ahead. We're worrying about congealing. Since he doesn't have to give the 3 drops, he always has a residue in it. And therefore, it's more prone to go ahead and congeal. And Memela, he has to do it twice a week. The wholesaler is, the drops are coming out. The balabas, the drops are coming out. The Chenvani, the drops are staying. And therefore, he's more prone to a buildup of residue and memela what? Twice a week. Umamche mishkaloisav hamachas b'Shabbos. And his weights that he uses to counterbalance, he goes ahead by liquid measurements once a week. He cleans it off. Umekanech maznayim akol mishkol u'mishkol. And the scale on each time it's used, he wipes it down. When he wiped these down, this whole Mishnah is speaking belach. It's speaking when it is wet. If it's a solid, dry measurement, it's unnecessary to go ahead and wipe down because there's no residue, and therefore you don't have to worry about the measurement being incorrect. Just one thing about this din of the Chenvani. Let's see this Rashbam over here. The Rashbam HaChenvani Mekaneach Pamayim b'Shabbos. I want to see the count up from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up. Four lines up. Elanira, Dafil Reb Shimon Gamliel Moide b'Chenvani. Even Reb Shimon Gamliel, who says the Sitain is only once in 12 months, because he doesn't use it as much. And the balabas, who uses it seldom, but it congeals, he's moide by the Chenvani twice a week. Afal pisha moichet hader, even though he sells all the time, similar to the wholesaler, the kiven shein chayav lahatfif gimel tipin, fellas, since the Chenvani is not required to go ahead and wait for the 3 drops to go ahead and leave, nikrash b'seicha, it coagulates inside, yoser, more. So I think I spoke this out in the sheet, but it's the sheet. In other words, Shimon Gamliel is moide by the Chenvani. He argues by the Sitain. The Tanakhama says Sitain once every 12 months, and he 30 days. He says once every 12 months. The balabas is once every 12 months. He says once every 30 days. But by the Chenvani, he's moide twice a week, because again the Chenvani has residue over there because of what? Because of the he's not chayiv to wait for the 3 drops to go out. Amid Beis, the moicher is chayiv lahachri aloi, to tip the scale. He's chayiv to give a little more. He's chayiv to tip the scale. How much? Tefach. When he weighs meat, he's chayiv to go ahead and tip the scale a tefach in the place that this is not. That's the minig. Shakala ayin ba'ayin. And if it's a place where the minig was not to tilt the scale, nonetheless, noisein la girumin, he goes ahead and adds a little more. Shu echad la'asara b'lach, v'echad la'asim b'yavish. 1/10 in lach, 1/20 in yavish. We'll see what that means. So there seems to be a different minhagim. One minig was to tip the scale a tefach in the favor of the lokeach. And if it's ba'ayin, guys, meaning that the fulcrum was this way and it was even, you didn't tip a scale. Nonetheless, you had we'll see the shear of 1/10 for lach and 1/20 for yavesh. Makom shenoy lomed b'daka, lo yomid b'gasa. Let's say a place that would go ahead and they would use, now there's 6 kav in a saw. So 6 kav in a saw, yeah, I think so. All right. 6 kav in a saw. So this is a place that they would go ahead and use a small measuring. La yomud bigasa. You can't go ahead and use a large measurement. So watch, guys. Let's say this is a place that uses a kav. So you might say the following: you're buying a saw, you're buying 6 kavim, so don't make 6 separate measurements. Make one measurement of a saw, and that'll be equal. Because after all, there's 6 kavim in a saw, right? So kill 6 birds with 1 stone, 1 weight, and that'll do it. And the answer is no, because if the minig is to use the smaller ones, that means each time you're going to tilt the scale a little bit. So if you do 1 fell swoop, you're going ahead and you're taking away from the lekeach. He'd be missing that little extra. He's entitled to the 6 times that little extra if you do it once. So that's what it means over here. If you're accustomed to go ahead and use the daka, the small amount, don't go ahead and use a larger amount equal to the, in this case, 6 times the smaller amount. Conversely, bigasa, if you use a larger amount, layoma bidaka, don't use the smaller amount, because now you'll be ripping off the meicher. You'll be ripping off the meicher. Limchaik, they would go ahead and they would sell machak where it's skimmed off the top. It's layigosh. Don't go ahead, Rod, and limchaik layigdosh ligdosh layimchaik. In other words, it could be a heaping or it could be smooth. A place they use heaping, don't make it smooth, vice versa. Because of Ramoyim, because of trickers that we'll see. Says the Gemara, Minani Mili, how do you know you're machriya? Guys, the Havamina is, how do you know you go ahead and machriya tefach? And it's mashmitz deraisa. Minani Mili, Amar Reish Lakish, the Amakra, the pasuk says, Evan Shlema Vitzedek. Why does we have to, the word tzedek is extra? Sadek mishalcha. Go ahead and make righteous from you. So in other words, tilt the scale, go overboard. V'tein and give him. If they're going ahead and they're weighing equal, not by being machriya, not by tilting, you're going to give this little amount, the 10th or the 20th. Fellas, if you're telling me that to tilt the scale of full tefach is deraisa, how could you ever have ayin ba'ayin, which is equal? Obviously, if the Mishnah discussed the case of ayin ba'ayin, it must be the din of being machriya tefach, of tilting a tefach, is not deraisa. So the Gemara says you're right. When we said deraisa, we weren't going on the machriya, we were going on the smaller amount. We were going on ayin ba'ayin. Elaresha b'makom shenagu. This din of machriya tefach, it depends upon makom. It depends upon the place. In this place, they have the machriya. V'chi mad Reish Lakish. And when did Reish Lakish say his din of Evan Shlema V'tzedek? Aseifa itmar. He learned on the case of ayin ba'ayin. Hayeshakaloi ayin ba'ayin. If it was a place where they would go ahead and not be machriya, not tilt, nonetheless, you have to give a little more. Nice and not girumim. You give a small tilt. Minani mili, how do you know you give a small tilt? Reish Lakish damakra v'tzedek. What does tzedek mean? Tzedek mishalcha v'tein loy. Be matzdik, be righteous from yourself, and give him a little more. The kama girumim, and how much is that? Amar Rav Mamamel, Amar Rav, Echad me'asara belitra, belach la'asara litrin. Guys, 1/10 when you're selling 10 liters, or 1/100th. 1/10 of 10 liters, 100, you add 100th more. Now, that's by lach. What about Yavesh? The Mishnah said 1/20th. Now, guys, does 1/20th mean 1/20th when you're selling 20 liters and therefore it's 1/400th? Or it means v'chein 1/10 of 20, which is 1/200th. So in other words, that 120 is it times 110 or is it times 120? The 110 is zicha times 110. This 110 is zicha times 110. The question is the 120 like 110, 1/200th, or is it 120 times 20, which is 1/400th? Says the Gemara, Ibaylahu, Hachi Kamar, Echad me'asar belach la'asar delach. That's 100th. V'echad me'esrim biyavesh la'esrim diyavesh, which is 1/400th. Idilma echad me'asara la'asara delach. That's 1/100th. U'le'esrim diyavesh, and also yavesh 1/10 of 20, which is 1/200th. And the Gemara says teku. Okay. Now the Gemara goes off and explains to us how important it is to be honest when it comes to weights and measurements. Says the Gemara, Amrav Levi, Kasha einshin shel midos, Yaisa me einshin shel arayos. It's more kasha, the midas of weights and measurements, than the punishment of illicit relations. Shezen nemar behen el, by arayos, the pasuk says, Ki eskala ta'evas ha'el asu anshe haaretz, without the hay, v'zen nemar, and Kitavas Shem Lekecha Kol Oisa Eile Ka Oisa Avol. Anyone who cheats is considered Oisa Avol. He's doing a terrible thing. And it doesn't say the lashon of Ale. It says lashon of Eile with the extra hay to show you it's more severe, right? To show you it's more severe, and that's why he's going with an extra hay by the parsha of weights and measurements. Umay mashman the high Ale kashahu. How do you know it's a lashon of severity? And you went ahead and took it from Elei Aretz, the mighty of the land. Read the Gemara, Gabe Aroyas Nami Kasiv Ele. By Aroyas fellas, it also says Ele. It says El, but it also says Ele. The pasuk says, at the end of Pashas Achrimos, it says anyone who does any one of these terrible things, v'nichvasu. So it says lashon of Eila. So how can you tell me it's more severe what it said by what? By weights and measurements, because it says El by Arayos. It also says Eila by Arayos. On that, the Gemara answers beautifully. Says the Gemara, that Eila is to Elohu Ma'ude Midos Mikaris. Since you say that weights and measurement is more severe, you might think you're chayiv karis. So therefore it says, anyone oisa eile, anyone who does these, the aroyas, v'nichrasu, then you'd get karis. But no karis what by weights and measurements. Now the question is, if that gets karis and this doesn't get karis, how is weights and measurements more severe, fellas? How is weights and measurements more severe? If you're telling me you're excluding weights and measurements from karis, how is it more severe? It says, what's the adifis? What's the severity of weights and measurements cheating over arayos? The hasam efshe b'tshuva. Over there, by arayos, it's possible to do tshuva. The hachal efshe b'tshuva, by weights and measurements, it's not possible to do tshuva. What does that mean? It says, l'chayra, we know that a person does an act of illicit act. You can do tshuva. On the other hand, weights and measurements you can't, because you don't know who to return it to. You cheated people, you don't know who to return it to. In order to go ahead and get off the hook, you have to be mekayim v'heishu es hagazela shegazal, and you don't know who to return it to. Since you don't know who to return it to, then l'chayra what? You can't do tshuva. Let's see a taisus here. Hasam efshe b'tshuva v'dafka ba'aroya she'em be'mamzeris. That's provided the illicit union did not have a child, and to create a mamzer. Aval abal eishes ish v'cholim imenu ben aishar aroyos sheyesh ben mamzeris That's a case of something that's crooked that can't be made straight. However, Rav Chaim Amar, because he created a child that's illicit, he says he to be to do tshuva. Aval Gazlan sheshuvasle hu sheyachsa gazela. The tshuva of the Gazlan is returning the gazela. Kedichsiv the heishavas gazela the heked the gazel the rabbim any yadei l'miyashiv. If you stole it from a rabbim, you don't know who to return it to. The afagav da'amino on yasem em tzarchi rabbim. You should go ahead and make use your money for the needs of the community. The kamakim lav tshuva mal yasi. It's not the best tshuva. So says Tysus brings that the severity is that you can't do tshuva, you're stuck. I think about 6th grade, I stole a fudgicle for 5 cents. To this, I never get over it. I was in Rhinus, the corner, the corner, there's a grocery store in the corner. I went in there with a kid, and it was the only thing I stole in my life. I think knowingly, and for that nickel, I got to live with it the rest of my life. That fudgicle. Unbelievable. Just the Indian of, I have to weights and measurements. I tell the story all the time. My father had a take-home food store, and I went to work for him. I've told him many times over. Thanks for listening again. And he said to me, go ahead and get a pound of coleslaw. So I went, got a pound of coleslaw, put it on the scale. It said a pound. And he said to me, that's not a pound of coleslaw. I said, what do you mean? He goes, they're paying for a pound of coleslaw, not paying for a container containing a little less than a pound of coleslaw. Weigh the container, and then from then on, you go ahead, you give the pound of coleslaw, that pound plus that little more, because they want the pound of coleslaw, they want that container. I wonder in Bisman Azev, people do that. I see people, you go to the store, they put it in the thing, and they just throw it on the scale, and they charge you. I'm wondering, but that's my father taught me that lesson, and I'll learn it for the rest of my life. Kenny?
At Yankee, they set the scales lower to match the containers.
They do. You see that?
I watch them do it.
Yeah, they have there's a minus there. They do set it.
Right.
It's very good. Okay, so we're discussing some more memories regarding weights and measurements. This is now the pasuk in the Torah, when it comes to of Asham Gezelos, the pasuk says, Nefesh ki sechta umol mal b'Hashem. The nefesh ki sechta, who sins, and then it says umol mal b'Hashem. He rebels against Hashem. That's by what? That's by a person stealing. From Hegdish, it says ish ki simul ma'al v'chata. So first, when you mal behegdish, it first says meila, and then it says chayta. So when you steal, it says chayta then mila. When you do mila, first says mila, then you say chayta. From Rab Levi, kasha gezel hedyet yoisel mi gezel gavaya. It's more severe stealing from a person than it is from the Baruch Shleilam. Shezeh higdim chait lemeila. The pasuk says sechta umol mal. First it says chait and then it says mila. V'zeh, and when you moil behegdish, zeh higdim mila lechait. It says the lashon of mila before the lashon of chait. Ki simul mal and then lechata. From Rab Levi, and this is Rabbi Avi is going to love this. The midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not like the midas basav adam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu berech Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he goes ahead. What? HaKadosh Baruch Hu berech. He goes ahead and he benches Yisrael. And b'shtayim with be'esem b'shtayim, he benches with 22 letters. The kilalon, and he he curses b'shmaina. What does that mean? Birchan be'esem b'shtayim. Now, fellas, you just read this morning Parshas of the Teichacha. The Teichacha in Parshas B'chukoisai is Hashem saying it. The Teichacha in Kisavai is Moshe Rabbeinu saying it. So we're contrasting the Teichacha from B'chukoisai to the Teichacha that we just learned today. So what does it say in B'chukoisai? It says, from the word im b'chukoisai ad kama miyos, so the aleph me'im aleph, and the last word is kama miyos. That's a suf. So aleph to suf is the 22 letters of the aleph base. So the bracha, Hashem gives between two letters. However, the Kilelon, Bishmaina, it says, Me'v'im b'chukaisai timasu, ad v'eschukaisai go'olam nafsham. So you go from a Vav to a Mem, guys. Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Chaf, Lamed, Mem is 8 letters. So the bracha is the full alphabet, and the klal is only 8 letters. It's only 8 letters. Conversely, Ilu Moshe Rabbeinu, Bircha Shmaina, the Kalam Besem Shtayim, it's the opposite. His bracha was 8 letters, and his klala was 22. Birchem B'Shmaina Amin Aleph, it says, Mivahoya im Shemaya Tishma Ba'adla Avdam. So again, you have the Vav of Vahoya, Adla Avdam, the Mem. So the Vav to the Mem is 8 letters. The Kilam Besem V'Shtayim, Mivahoya, the Vav, im Loy Sishma Ad Ve'en Koine. So guys, if you go from a Vav to a Hey, so you have to go through the whole alphabet all the way around, and that would give you 22. So how serendipitous that we end this Gemara with this. Now, just for a Tosfos, an interesting Tosfos, Halach L'Maisa, the last Tosfos on the page, on Peches Amid, why do we read Parshas Nitzavim and before Rosh Hashanah? So if you look at Tosfos, Nir L'Ri, go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines up. The Nir L'Ri, the Lahachi Anu Koirim L'Olam Atam Nitzavim V'Ei Rosh Hashanah. You always lay in Atam Nitzavim before Rosh Hashanah. G'dei lahafsik b'parsha ben klal lois the shana she'avra the v'hoya kisavai. You want to go ahead and be mafsik between the klalos that we read today, right? L'shana haba u'lekach nami la'olam anu koyrim b'midbar fnei atzeres. And as you want to get rid of all the klalos before the next year, so therefore we go ahead and Nitzavim lefei Rosh Hashanah k'dei lahafsik b'parsha ben klalos the shana she'avra the v'hoya kisavai l'shana haba. So therefore we lay in v'hoya kisavai and then nitzavim. We lay in parshas b'midbar before Shavuos. They lahafsik bein klolos the imbuchu kaisai latzeres. We want to lay in that before Shavuos. Shahu Rosh Hashanah lePeiros ha'ilon shenedunim ala Peiros. V'achis in Mesechta Megillah the koyin klolos shebetoros koinim l'fnei atzeres.